Welcome to the Injured Gadgets iPhone 6s Plus Complete LCD and Digitizer Removal plus Reinstallation. So this morning we went out and got the iPhone 6s and the 6s Plus. We wanted to be one of the first ones to post a video online of the complete teardowns. So as you can see, this is in fact the iPhone 6s, and this is the Plus version. First thing you want to do is go ahead and power off your phone before you ever do any type of repair on it. So we're going to go ahead and power this off. This phone has not been opened yet. We're looking at it for the first time, essentially, just like you guys are. So go ahead and take your pentalobe screwdriver. We carry these parts on injuredgadgets.com, and remove the two bottom screws. You will need the pentalobe screwdriver for this. And then after that, you're going to use an Disassembly tool. So one thing we noticed on the iPhone 6s and the 6s Plus is that unlike all their predecessors, there actually is adhesive completely around the front screen, around the edges of it. So to kind of separate the front screen from the frame, you can use a heat gun to loosen up that adhesive. We decided we were just going to use our Disassembly tool, and you want to take it from right at this angle, right around the headphone jack. That's where a little opening is. And we decided not to use a heat gun, but carefully and slowly go all the way around the entire screen. Now, obviously we could have rushed this if the screen was broken, but we didn't want to break the brand new screen, so we took our time doing this. I'm going to go ahead and speed this up a little bit. Alright, once that adhesive is all removed, the first thing you want to do before you ever start a repair on any iPhone, or really any phone if possible, is disconnect the battery. So there's two Phillips head screwdrivers covering up the battery connection. We're going to use our 00 Phillips screwdriver. Once again, all these tools are available on our website, injuredgadgets.com. And we are going to remove the two screws covering up this little shield right here. Under the shield is the actual connector for the iPhone 6s Plus battery. So once this shield is removed, you can use a Nylon Spudger, a pry tool, or your fingernails of course, and disconnect the battery. Alright, with the battery connected, now I feel comfortable enough to go ahead and do the removal of the actual screen from the phone. As you can see, there is this little plate covering up the screen assembly cables. You're going to remove the 5 Phillips head screwdrivers. Make sure you keep these screws in order, because if you do not, it can damage the board later. All 5 of these screws are differently sized. You do not want to mix them up. So we're going to go ahead and remove these 5 screws covering this little plate right here. Alright, go ahead and remove that plate, and now you can disconnect the 3 flex cables as shown here. Once again, we like to use either a nylon spudger, plastic spudger, or your fingernail here. I don't recommend using metal on any parts of the actual logic board. You never know, there could be some electrostatic shock and it could fry your board. Very rare, but it is possible. So you'll want to go ahead and disconnect these cables right here. And now your screen should be able to separate from the actual phone. So once again, this was a brand new device. We realized as we were trying to remove the screen from the phone that the screen protector is actually one piece. So we're going to use our scissors right here and actually kind of cut it, because we don't want to remove the screen protector from the phone just yet. So you get to see the fun of us using some scissors. Alright, now with the screen assembly removed from the actual frame and housing of the phone, we're going to work on just the screen assembly. First thing you want to do is go ahead and remove the home button on the very bottom. Once again, this uses your Phillips 00 screwdriver, and you will remove the 2 screws as shown right here. They hold a little plate in. Once that plate comes off, you can slowly disconnect the home button flex cable from the logic board home button flex, and you'll see us do that here. Alright, so we wanted to obviously be careful. This is our first time ever doing this. Like I said, we're doing this repair with you guys essentially. One thing we noticed, and this is the same with the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, is that the home button flex cable was connected with a little bit of adhesive under it. So we use our ISSMO tool to kind of lift the flex cable, and then obviously we can push it out from the front. You don't want to like pull it immediately because the little plastic gasket around the home button itself is kind of stuck with adhesive as well. So we took our time here. You want to go at it carefully to pop that home button out. Alright, with the home button removed, there are 3 more Phillips screws on either side of the frame. You're going to remove the 6 screws total from the 2 sides of the frame. Alright, with those screws removed, now you have 4 more screws at the top, 1 in the side right here, and then 3 screws holding up that bracket. Once the side screw is removed, the little plate covering the back of the LCD assembly will come off pretty easily. It should just slide right out. I'm holding it down, that's why you don't see it actually fall off, but it'll come off pretty easily. And then these 3 screws right here, they actually cover up your ear speaker, your front camera and proximity sensor, and your camera bracket and proximity sensor brackets. Alright, the last step of this is to remove the front camera flex cable. It is stuck in with a little bit of adhesive, so you want to be careful right here because you don't want to rip the actual front camera proximity sensor flex cable. It controls quite a few components of your iPhone 6s Plus. So if you need to use a little bit of heat from the front, we didn't use any heat, but it is pretty similar to the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, so we were comfortable enough removing this without using any heat. But you do want to be careful there. Anyhow, once that's removed, you have your complete LCD Digitizer assembly right here. And if you were buying this part brand new, this is probably what it would look like. And we're going to go ahead and do the reinstall to show you guys what that looks like. So go ahead and take your front camera proximity sensor. There's also a mic on there. You'll see a little white circular hole. Make sure you line it up properly because you want everything obviously to go back in its place during this repair. Go ahead and put your proximity sensor back into its bracket as well. And you'll see those 2 things right there. Make sure they go in those brackets. Don't push too hard. You don't want to crack the actual part. Alright, once that's properly put in, go ahead and grab your earpiece speaker. Place it right on top of the front camera flex cable. Make sure the front camera goes into its bracket properly. Once that's done, go ahead and grab the silver bracket on top. Now once that's there, I like to go ahead and grab the middle screw of the 3 screws and tighten that in because that is the longest screw, and it'll also kind of secure the other 2 while I'm trying to put them in because I'm holding it down pretty tight at the moment. Alright, go ahead and grab that back shield, put that in place, and screw that in with the side screw. Once that side screw is in, you can go ahead and secure the other 2 screws holding that little shield covering the front camera, ear speaker, proximity sensor, and microphone. From here, I'm going to go ahead and re-screw in the 6 screws on the sides of the frame. And the final step of putting our screen back together is going to be the actual home button flex cable. Make sure that this is lined up properly. Make sure that the rubber gasket is properly covering the actual home button. And also there are little white divots where the home button flex cable kind of lines up. So make sure that that's properly covering those little white divots. It's in its right spot. And then go ahead and clip in your flex cable. Lastly, go ahead and take that bracket that covers up the home button, line it up once again properly, and screw in the 2 screws on either side of the little bracket. Alright, at this point we're going to go ahead and prepare to reinstall the screen assembly onto the actual phone's housing once again. I like to start with the cable on the right side, plug that one in. It just seemed like it was the cable on the top and it would go in first, so we went ahead and plugged that in. Sometimes you might have to tinker around with trying to properly align it. You don't want to jam it or push too hard. You could end up breaking the actual pins on the logic board or the pins on the flex cable itself. So take your time here. If you're not feeling an easy click, don't try and jam it down. Next, you want to do this long flex cable. Make sure this goes in one snap. You don't want it to go in from like left to right or anything like that. It's just one easy snap, followed by that cable right there. Once these cables are in, go ahead and get that little shield. Make sure these cables are all tightly pushed down. But once they are, make sure to go ahead and get that shield and go ahead and screw in the 5 little 00 Phillips screws on top of it. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and reconnect our battery and the shield that goes over the battery and those 2 screws. So go ahead and plug your battery in. Make sure, once again, that's an easy click. You don't want to push too hard and break the actual pins on the battery where it clicks in. If it pops out, go ahead and plug it back in. Make sure it's an easy click though. I cannot stress that enough. Once that's there, go ahead and put the bracket on top and screw the 2 little screws back in. At this point, everything is connected. Go ahead and lay your screen down. Make sure you slide it in from the top. There's little grooves on the top. Make sure you slide it in from there. What you're seeing right here is just the little leftover adhesive that we had from the phone when we removed the top of it. And like I said, there was actually adhesive all along the sides. For the first time ever, we've seen an iPhone with adhesive all around the edges. So yeah, make sure you slide it from the top because there's grooves that go into the top. And then slowly go along each side, line them up. Don't go along one side completely and then the other. I like to line each side up. And then take your 2 pentalobe screws, go ahead and screw those in, and power up your phone. It's a good idea to test everything out, make sure it's all working. And you'll see us just make sure that the touchscreen is working, the home button works, and everything was perfect. Remember, we carry all these parts and tools at injuredgadgets.com. Make sure to comment below, like us on Facebook, and follow us on YouTube.